to another session of Heckscher Home Kids Edition. Today we're going to be doing something a little different, and we're going to be reading a book and getting inspiration from the illustrations inside of it. So for today, our storybook is a classic, The Snowy Day by Ezra Jack Keats. I'm super excited to read this to you guys today, and I hope you guys like the illustrations just as much as I do. One winter morning, Peter woke up and looked out the window. Snow had fallen during the night. It covered everything as far as he could see. After breakfast, he put on his snowsuit and ran outside. The snow was piled up very high along the street to make a path for walking. Crunch, 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 crunch. His feet sank into the snow. He walked with his toes pointing out like this. He walked with his toes pointing in like that. Have you guys ever tried to make your own different kinds of footprints when you walked in the snow? Then he dragged his feet slowly to make tracks. And he found something sticking out of the snow that made a new track. It was a stick. A stick that was just right for smacking a snow-covered tree. What do you guys think happened after he smacked the tree? Down fell the snow, plop, on top of Peter's head. He thought it would be fun to join the big boys in their snowball fight, but he knew he wasn't old enough. Not yet. So he made a smiling snowman, and he made angels. Have you guys made angels in the snow before? It's lots of fun. He pretended he was a mountain climber. He climbed up a great, big, tall, heaping mountain of snow, and he slid all the way down. He picked up a handful of snow and another and still another. He packed it round and firm and put the snowball in his pocket for tomorrow. Then he went into his warm house. What do you guys think happens after you put a snowball in your pocket? He told his mother all about his adventures while she took off his wet socks. He thought and thought and thought about them. Before he got into bed, he looked in his pocket. His pocket was empty. The snowball wasn't there. He felt very sad. While he slept, he dreamed that the sun had melted all the snow away. But when he woke up, his dream was gone. The snow was still everywhere. New snow was falling. After breakfast, he called to his friend from across the hall, and they went out together into the deep, deep snow. The end. The author, Ezra Jack Keats, is also the illustrator for this book. So that means he created all of the artwork and created our character, Peter. So when you're an illustrator, that means you're creating pictures that help better tell a story. And I think he did a very, very good job here. As we were reading our book, Peter did a lot of fun things on his snowy day. He decided to experiment by making different kinds of footprints in the snow. He tried to get into a snowball fight with all of the big kids, and he even made snowmen and a bunch of snow angels. Now, some of you guys might have done the same things that Peter has done on a snowy day, but maybe we can use our imaginations to think of even more kinds of adventures we could go on the next time we have our own snowy day. So thinking about that, let's start our art project. So for today, our materials list is pretty simple. Here's what you'll need to make our art project today. We'll be starting out with a white piece of paper, some different colored pieces of paper, but if you don't have colored construction paper, you can also use white paper, but just color it in with markers or crayons or whatever you have at home. A pair of scissors, a pencil, and an eraser, a ruler, and last but not least, definitely my favorite part, your choice of coloring materials. Today I'm going to be using construction crayons because I'll be working on colored paper, but if you have regular crayons, markers, or colored pencils, those work as well. So taking inspiration from our book today, I'm going to show you guys a page that I really enjoyed. I love that Peter experimented with all different kinds of footprints in the snow. He pointed his feet in, he pointed his feet out, but as well, if you look in the background, you'll notice we see a lot of different colored buildings. So because of that, we can guess that he probably lives in a city in comparison to maybe the countryside or a more suburban place. So I'm gonna use this page as my inspiration and make lots of snow with tons of buildings in the back, and then make my own character give them their own special adventure on a snowy day. So the first thing that I want to do is make my snow. So I'm going to trace out big mountains of snow on my white piece of paper and then cut it out. Okay, all done. So for my next part, now that I have my snow all cut out, I'm actually gonna do a crayon rubbing. So when you look at snow, because it's white, it reflects a lot of light from the sun, and it shows all different colors in it as well. It's not just pure white. So to do that, I'm going to use a few different crayons to give my snow some texture and color. So to do my crayon rubbing, I'm going to be peeling off the paper from my crayon and using it on its side to rub against my paper. I'm removing the last piece of paper that I need. You don't have to take off all the paper as long as you have a good amount of the crayon showing here. Now that I have all of my crayons peeled, I'm going to go ahead and start rubbing them. So each section, I'm going to do a light rubbing, and I'm going to have the crayon on its side, and I'm going to apply pressure. So I'm going to do this nice and light, and I'm going to hold down the paper with one hand as I use my crayon with the other. So if you guys can see here, we can still see the white through the purple, and I'm going to start adding in different colors and laying them on top of each other. Now I'm finished with my crayon rubbing, and I'm going to set this aside while I put together the other parts of my art project, and then at the end, I'll put all of them together for the final look. Taking another white piece of paper, this is gonna act as my background. Now I mentioned Peter was in a city, so I kind of want to have a similar background as that. So I'm going to be using my colored paper to cut out buildings for the background. Using my colored paper, I cut out long rectangles to act as my buildings for my background. So these might be a little long for my paper, but I'm going to lay them out and see what looks best and then cut off the extra. So I've arranged all of my buildings the way that I want them, and then I'm going to go ahead and glue them down. But you can see that they're way too long for my paper. So once the glue dries, I'm going to go in and cut out the extra and then move on to our next step. All right, guys, now I have my buildings cut out and everything looks really good for my background, but I'm missing a few things. So my next couple of steps are, I'm gonna color in the rest of my background. I'm gonna make it blue up here for a big, nice sky on our snowy day. I'm going to decorate my buildings with some more details and give them windows and outline them with a black crayon. And since it is a snowy day, we can't forget adding in some snow on the top of our buildings as well. After that, we'll be taking our snow that we already made and then gluing that on top of our buildings. And then we'll be creating a character to tie it all off. And that is our finished project, everybody. I put together all of the different parts that we created separately, and now we're looking at our finished art project. I wanted to point out some of the details that I added to my drawing. So you guys saw me when I had my buildings, and then after that, I added the snow on top. I made my background big and blue for the perfect day. And then we took our snow that we created separately with the crayon rubbings and we glued that on top. Once I did that, I went back in and used a black crayon to make the windows on top of my buildings. And the very last thing I did was create my character. So as you guys can see here, we have Giselle, the coolest snowboarder. And so I have her snowboarding down from the top of the mountain all the way to the bottom. And I even added some lines so you could see that she was moving. Okay guys, thank you so much for joining me for this week's Heckscher Home Kids Edition. I hope you guys liked doing something different and having an activity centered around a children's book. So for this activity series, we'll be using all different kinds of inspirations to make our art project. So remember to tune in to next month's Heckscher at Home and see what other great art projects we'll be doing together. If you did this, please make sure to tag us on social media, follow and like this video if you enjoyed watching, and we hope to see you guys next time. Bye!